All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. My name is Amber Samdahl. I'm with PBS Wisconsin. Welcome to our Public Media Innovators webinar for November. If you haven't joined us previously, Public Media Innovators is a NEDA peer learning community. So on behalf of my fellow PMI team members, Chad Davis and Dave Huppert, thank you for being here today. And thanks to NEDA for helping host these sessions. And before we dive in today, I want to take a moment to announce next month's webinar. So on December 11th, we're going to host a discussion around SEO and AI. I'm sure this is a growing hot topic, and we're going to have some members of the PBS marketing team join us to talk about what we should be thinking about adapting when it comes to discoverability and search engine optimization with the introduction of AI. So I'll put links in the chat for anyone interested in joining. And now, really excited to jump in with the topic today. Excited to have really special guests this month talking about an incredibly unique project. Of course, we're talking about Powwow Bound. Here we all have our shirts on today to celebrate. Powwow Bound and Menominee Homecoming is an interactive story game that was developed through a very unique partnership between Nebraska Public Media, PBS Wisconsin, Vision Maker Media, and members of the Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin. And full disclosure, Chad and I were executive producers on this game, but really we have the real talent, the real brains of the project here to talk about it and take us all behind the scenes of the collaboration. So there will be a short presentation, some panel Q&A, and then really want to open it up to the audience to ask questions. So feel free to put questions in the chat. And we will be recording this session and it'll be posted on our website within approximately the next week or so. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to our guests and starting with Angelina. Welcome.
Hi everyone, thank you for being here on our session on Powwow Bound, co-creating through culture and play. My name is Angelina Shi. I'm an interactive media producer with PBS Wisconsin, and I helped co-produce this game along with Jacob.
Yeah, Poso. My name's Jacob Schweitzer. I'm the other co-producer on Powwow Bound. I'm a game producer and software developer over at Nebraska Public Media. And then I'll hand it over to our two advisors joining us. First up, Justin.
Also, everybody, I'm Justin Judd Gothier. Eagle's my middle name, as you can see on the slide. But yeah, I'm a writer, actor, director, producer, sandwich eater, pizza lover guy, and I helped write the game along with Angelina and Jacob and our advisory team. Great to be here, Nani.
Poso Mauniwiak, Wananakway Akayan. I'm a Nanakwela tender and I work from time to time as a Menominee language advisor for Powwow Bound for other things. And I'm also a artist. Glad to be here too.
But yeah, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this game, Powwow Bound was co-created between co-produced by Nebraska Public Media and PBS Wisconsin with additional funding support from Vision Maker Media. I'll pass on to Jacob to talk a little bit more about the goals of the game.
Yeah. So the main goal for the game was to create an authentic representation of Indigenous peoples within video games. Often you'll still see stereotypical depictions of Indigenous folks or see entirely falsified depictions as well, because the makers of the games don't consult with the tribe. So in making this game, we wanted to make sure that it was made in service and in collaboration with the community that was being depicted. So we actually went and engaged with members of the Menominee Nation and brought them on to the game to have key roles with the project. Our goal for the game was to allow players to gain an authentic understanding of Menominee culture and traditions, enjoy gameplay, whether that was through actual objectives or exploration, and form deep connections with our characters through the story that we had depicted. Uh, Ultimately, that goal of experiencing the culture and traditions of the Menominee tribe through a story set at the annual contest powwow is what became Powwow Bound. We created a story around that, crafted all our characters to help sell that story, and made a game that replicated our powwow grounds. So now we're going to show our trailer and give you a sense of what the game is like.
PBS Wisconsin and Nebraska Public Media present Powwow Bound, a Menominee Homecoming, a narrative-driven, web-based adventure game. Step into the life of DJ as she embarks on a journey to reconnect with her Menominee heritage. Experience the Menominee Nation contest powwow through DJ's eyes. Feel the energy of the powwow. Learn about dancing and test your rhythm. Practice your photography in a captivating scavenger hunt. Explore rich 3D environments and meet dynamic characters while celebrating the culture of the Menominee Nation. Powwow Bound, a Menominee Homecoming. Mamachit Tawaks Kwaya. Everyone is going home.
Yeah, so if that voice sounds familiar, that is our very own Nani Quayla Tender narrating the trailer, and we're grateful that she was able to come on and do that in addition with her language advisor role. But yeah, in working with the community and creating a game that depicted the culture and the traditions authentically, we needed to bring on a lot of community members to act as advisors on this project. Even though I'm Menominee and the co-producer on the project, I can't speak for my entire tribe. So it was very important that we brought on other members to make sure that depiction was holistic and as uniform as possible. So we brought on folks that ranged from the arts, whether that's beadwork, woodland floral art, or the traditional drum, actually having that music within the game. That was very important. We also brought in 2 dance advisors to help create the characters and inform the dance moves that are utilized within those styles. We brought on Nani Kwe as our Menominee language advisor, and she worked in addition to Judd as our narrative component to imbue the language with the imbue the language into the story and craft a story that is entirely representative of what it means to be Menominee. In addition to all that, we also had a character concept artist who was Menominee that was brought on as well to create the characters that were depicted in our story. But yeah, I'm going to throw it back over to Angelina to talk about the team makeup.
Yeah, so this was created across 2 different stations, Nebraska Public Media, PBS Wisconsin. We had folks working on it from on both sides. So looking at the structures, Nebraska Public Media did a lot of these 3D art. The PBS Wisconsin also pitched in for some additional support. Nebraska also handled all of the programming, handled the final audio design, as well as provide some more additional input to narrative. While on PBS Wisconsin side, we provided art direction and some UI UX support. Of course, there was a lot of coordination that had to happen between the 2 teams, which was where Jacob and I came in. So we're being able to coordinate communication. It was very important. We had weekly meetings, not just across the teams, but also for individual areas. So we had a programmers meeting, we had an art meeting, we had a UI meeting, we had a narrative meeting, and so on, just to make sure that everyone was on the same page. Speaking of the same page, we also had to coordinate what tools we were using. Not all tools are compatible with each other, so we had to make sure that we were using things that everyone could use, as well as coordinating how we were passing information along to one another. And this is something that should happen early on. Now I'll pass it back to Jacob, talk about playtesting.
Yeah. So again, in working with the community and making sure that they have a say in the project, we actually did 2 playtesting sessions with Indigenous peoples. The first playtesting session that we did was down in Appleton, Wisconsin, at Lawrence University. We worked with their Native Alliance there to run a playtesting session with that group there and get feedback from them. In addition to that, we also hosted a 3-day playtesting session on the Menominee Reservation at the College of Menominee Nations Library. There we had a lot of Menominee folks come in, play the game for 30 minutes to an hour, and provide us feedback about what needed to be adjusted, what was working, what wasn't working, and just get a general sense of what the reaction would be. And upon doing all that, we were able to comfortably release it at the annual contest powwow in August. So yeah, there you see the team from both sides uh, hosted a booth at our annual contest powwow. It was very amazing being able to show off the game and the space that it actually exists in. And we got a lot of good feedback from the community. We had a lot of young folks come up and play the game, and they were very excited about it. Every so often, they would look at a character and say, "Oh, that looks like me," or "That looks like my mom," or recognize some spaces in the virtual powwow grounds, like, "Oh, my family sits there." So yeah, in seeing that, we knew very well that we had authentically captured that. I do want to throw it to Angelina and communicate what it felt like from PBS Wisconsin's perspective as well, being the home station for the Menominee tribe.
Yeah, it was a really great experience for us to be there, present when this was launched. It was really heartening to see the positive reactions and just how welcoming the community was. Think, but instead of hearing me talk about it, why don't we listen to some folks who actually did get the chance to play the game at the powwow.
So this game was inspired by the love that I have for my culture, the Menominee tribe, and wanting to provide a source of media that represented them authentically in a modern depiction. Often in video games, you don't see authentic depictions of Indigenous folks. So our intent was to create something that showed a better path forward for creating Indigenous media while also lifting up the voices of the Menominee tribe.
It was pretty emotional, honestly. I didn't grow up seeing a lot of people that looked like my family on TV or movies, or, definitely not in video games or anything like that.
Honestly, it's something that I never thought that I would ever experience, truthfully. This is just something that we experience as a culture together. So to see us in a video game, our powwow and our reservation being represented in such a great way, in a positive way, I love it.
My kids and my little young cousins and all the Nichianuk are going to be able to play a game where there's people that look like you, people that look like your family, people that sound like you and talk like you.
What I love is that I'm seeing, just being here, as kids are saying, "Hey, that looks like my auntie," or "That I know that person. I've been there."
I'm like a 10 out of 10. You get to walk around the powwow and do these quests.
It's truly, it just makes my heart happy. That's why I had to bring these guys to come see. I was just so amazed that we have a video game of our land with the bowl.
It's a big thing, it kind of makes you feel, seen and represented.
I had so much fun.
Yeah, so I think that gave a really good look at some of the reactions from the powwow launch event. So looking back at the course of the project, there are definitely some important lessons that we learned. Some of these I discussed, like aligning tools and methodologies across teams, but also aligning your teams early around the same goal and vision for whatever project you're working on. A lot of this couldn't have happened without spending time that investing in these long-term community relationships. This is stuff from before I worked at PBS Wisconsin. So this really was sort of the end product of years of work from many, many people. Making sure playtest early and often, as we saw from the community playtest, making sure playtest with the actual community, as well as advisor collaboration. We couldn't have done it without these folks. So make sure to start early, plan extra time, and pay them. It's really important work that they're doing. So now let us move on to the panel discussion. If you want to play the game, it is up at pbswisconsin.org/powwow.
Great. Thank you so much. I can kick off with some questions for you all, but anyone attending, please feel free to put questions in the chat as well. But just to kind of start, I have kind of a two-part question. Can you share a bit more about how the advisory group was built and how that kind of took place? And then also, Justin and Nanakwe, what did it mean to be invited into this project? What was that process like for you as well?
Yeah. So I can start with how this advisory group was built. It really came down to who do we know around the reservation. We're not the biggest community in the world, but we're very tight knit. So when we started asking around for like, oh, who would be a really good like beadwork advisor, or who would be a really good women's fancy shawl advisor, it came from connections that existed either through familial or friends or just someone that you met one time and it's like, oh, hey, they might know something. So as soon as we started building the advisors, we worked with the advisors as well to start growing that out and branching that out. So it was really almost a grassroots approach to developing that.
And how did that, I guess my question to Justin Nanakwe, how, had you worked together before? Have you worked on previous projects like this? How did the project kind of unfold for you?
I'll go first, Nani, if you don't mind. I acted as a chaperone and sort of mentor to both Nani and Jacob on some summer programs in the past years, mid 2010s. And it was just amazing to get to know them at the time and just sort of see like that whole cohort was full of enrolled Menominee and descendant Menominee kids who were going through their high school journey and thinking about higher education or what they want to do. And it was just amazing to be amidst that and just hear the conversations that were happening and make connections with people. Like Jacob said, a lot of it was really below grassroots. It was like grass seed level how this all started, yeah, and the collaboration really networked out from those kind of connections. What do you think, Nani? What was your experience?
Yeah, I totally agree. Jacob and Nick and I had gone through that internship together when we were younger and had, developed our friendship and kept that through the years. And Nick and Jacob are, so talented and they're working on lots of really cool projects. Whenever they put out the call, we make time to be a part of the projects that they're asking us to participate in. And then hearing that Judd was writing the script made me even more excited to hear that they were bringing on people that I know would contribute really cool perspectives to the project. And so it really wasn't a question when they asked me to be a part of it. I was, down to do what they asked. And I was excited that they were going to have a Menominee language advisor and that I would be able to do that for the project. So yeah.
And maybe you all could talk a little bit about how did the narrative come about? How did that story, how did you come up with the idea and how did the story get written and how was language incorporated in that?
Well, the original concept was to make sure that it was a modern depiction and a moment that we still see like a lot of our cultural elements highlighted are through our annual powwows, even with this annual contest powwow. So that was kind of the starting point. But working with Judd, he really brought a lot of his experience to that, and his family's experience to start imbuing that within the story. So I'll let him speak on that point.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, that the whole movement in across media towards telling Indigenous stories um, has been sort of simmering for, the last decade or two, and I feel like it's gained a lot of momentum in the last like 6, 7 years. Even up to today, like I just saw Sean Sherman, the sous chef, was on Daily Show last night talking about his cookbook, Turtle Island. So we're like Indigenous people are really sort of stepping up into the limelight where we always should have had a spot there. Um, so that idea of us writing a narrative for a video game together, I thought, why don't we use this opportunity to talk about things within our communities that are hard to get through in other forms of media. So really early on in our meeting, I think we were at like Glass Nickel Pizza or something. We were talking about how the fact that like I'm an enrolled tribal member, Jacob is a descendant tribal member, and there's just some sort of not a wedge, I would say, but there's a delineation of like colonial thought as to what a native person is in a community when we sort of adopt those roles of like, oh, I am enrolled because I have this percentage of blood in my family tree, and you are not enrolled, you are considered a descendant. It's a very like it's a touchy subject for a lot of people to talk about that blood quantum within tribal communities. So I thought this would be an amazing opportunity to introduce, a retinue of characters, a family that is experiencing this right now, like in this generation. Um, and that being said, it's not really the front and center thing that's in the narrative of the game. It just sort of runs through like a little ribbon that we wanted to have in the background. Um, so yeah, it was right from those initial meetings. I was like, oh man, this is an opportunity to tell a story that I've been thinking about just because of like Jacob said, my life experiences. Like I have cousins who I grew up with that were like my siblings who come from urban centers, and they will come up to the reservation, and there was just a feeling of like othering or different. They were different from us, from certain people within the community and from without. So it's a way to talk about that. It's a way to address it. It's a way for us as Menominee people to see that reflected and give reflection to it, think about it. Yeah, so it was a big piston in the engine of the story that we wrote for me. And throughout the process of writing, I was just sort of kept that like a program in the background running when we were writing. Yeah.
And how did you approach incorporating language into the game? And
Yeah, so I'm what's considered a second language learner. So I didn't grow up learning the Menominee language in my household. That would be considered a fluent language speaker. But I've been practicing learning and speaking the Menominee language for close to 10 years now. And so knowing that Judd was writing the script made it really a nice lift on me to be able to read it and know where I could incorporate language or almost like sub out some things that are really commonly used or some phrases that we want people to know and hear in the game because they're used really often, even in English. So reading the script and kind of translating some pieces was a part of my job. But also helped with whoever else was going to be speaking language within the game by recording the language and how it's properly pronounced. Because there might be some people who aren't able to pronounce it just by reading what we've written. And so it's really important for us to have the audio available for people who will be speaking it, incorporating it into the game. And then also making sure that the spelling is correct for when it shows up on the game is really important. Because of the way that it's spelled now. If you are a language learner, you see the spelling and you're pronouncing it based on the spelling. And so spelling is really important. So that was another part of my role. I also had a voice acting role for the main character, DJ, and the experience was really fun and awesome. The way that Jacob set up the recording in the studio was really helpful for me by including like the emotions or the tone that they wanted to convey with the phrases and the words and everything that I was tasked to speak for the character. And so it really helped me be able to do the voice recording to my best ability, having him provide like the feedback in the booth as well. And he also was nice enough to give me some examples of how they wanted it spoken. And so then I could kind of recast it and have it recorded in that way. So all in all, I think it was a really wonderful experience as someone who is usually tasked with language advisory or translation in a way, because they provided a space for me to be able to use my skill set and incorporate it into a really respectful and awesome way into the game. So I really appreciate how they went about, hiring people for the advisory process.
You mentioned the different ways that the language is included. I know there's a glossary in the game where people can go and consult. I'm wondering if the group of you could talk a little bit about how you're thinking about how this game is going to be used, how it's used in classrooms, and beyond. Kind of what's your hope for how people will approach playing this game?
Yeah, well, the hope is, that anybody of any background will get an understanding of, what it means to be Indigenous in modern times. Even though this is exclusively Menominee and set in a woodland tribe, it helps show that, we're still here. We don't live in teepees, we live in houses. We engage with each other just like anybody else would, but there's different cultures and different traditions that exist that are good to show a window and a mirror to other folks' lives. For Menominee folks, I hope that it allows them to see themselves in a game, especially since it's so rare to see Indigenous people represented in that space. And from a language component, I'm really hopeful that just by having the glossary, the text of the story, utilizing language, and hearing the voice acting that's being done, it can help create an interest in learning more about that. Um, yeah, no, we are lucky enough to have a language institute on our reservation that is actively teaching that language. Justin has some of the merch there. And Nani and her family collaborate with that quite often. We were just talking about that before this panel, that her partner is picking up more work teaching language there. So it's very wonderful to see the growth that's occurring on the Menominee Reservation, because language revitalization is very important in these times, as so many tribes are continuing to lose their language. We're lucky enough to be growing our language users.
Any other thoughts on that, or how are we using this in classrooms around the state too? Any other thoughts?
Well, I'll just mention that in the state of Wisconsin, there is a law called Act 31 that requires the instruction of Indigenous histories in the classroom. My mother is a first grade teacher, and that was one of the starting points for even making this game, just to create something that could be used in classrooms. Even though the game isn't educational by nature, we were able to create an educator's guide around it, to help prime other lessons on that front. But the hope is that people can utilize this in classrooms, either here or beyond Wisconsin, and just start showing, what it's like for Indigenous folks in a modern day.
Yeah, I believe Jacob and also Amber has tagged along on one of these trips, have been visiting classrooms to show students the game.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel bad because I'm talking quite a lot, even though this is a panel. But yes, we have been taking the game into classrooms, sharing it with the communities. I just came back this morning from the Menominee Indian Middle School. We had their entire sixth through eighth grade classes in the auditorium, and they were very, very interested in seeing this game. We had a lot of kids asking questions about how it was made, how where they can play it, and just very excited to play something that, represents their culture.
Yeah, and in terms of like the futurism angle of this, when we were at the Midwest Developers Conference, we ran into several people in the industry talking over the game and stuff, and it made me realize like how lucky I was to be sort of in the pocket of this project, working with Jacob and Angelina towards writing the narrative was awesome. But it also, out the other end of that, I was really proud that Nanique could be involved, my cousin could be involved in terms for artwork and for language. But yeah, as coming out the other side, I just think to myself about those youth that like Jacob and Amber presented to in the classrooms. Yeah, the fact if there's one of those kids that it piques their interest and they come out of it looking for a job in the video game industry, and then who knows, they could make the indigenous Fortnite or the indigenous Minecraft, like it's just amazing to think about the generational thing that could happen, because I saw it happen with Nanique and the Schweitzer brothers. Like, they had a dream, they had support, they had foot and hand holds, they had people behind them pushing them forward, and look what they achieved with this. So it's amazing. I think about the future of that future question, not to jump back, but that future question is really in the center of my thinking about it right now, because you never know what's going to come out the other side of this. And it's awesome that this generation, the couple generations behind me, is sort of being the tip of the spear on that. It's amazing.
Thank you. I'm wondering if maybe you all could talk a little bit about some of the development process. You talked about how the narrative, the concept of the narrative came to play. How about the game part of it? Maybe you could talk a little bit about the playtesting process and how you went into communities to develop that.
Right, so I can start us off on that. So a lot of the early playtesting we did was internal with the team, just because we did want to get this out early, to have people try it out and see what it was like. With that is a helpful form of playtesting, for earlier versions when you don't necessarily want to be putting incomplete work before the general public. However, once we did end up doing more general public testing, we started off with the public beta, which we just made available on our website. We had a Google Sheets, not Google Sheets, a Google form link to it, that people could then fill out as they wished once they played the game. This is very low effort for us because we didn't have to go out and hold these like long play tests. Our final play test for the entire game, like 2 hours long. So that's a quick way of collecting information. However, the big issue of collecting information that way is that you don't curate your playtesters at all. Who you're going to get is who you're going to get, in which case, who we got was overwhelmingly white and overwhelmingly male, which is not precisely the all the people that we want to appeal to. Obviously, it's great that they were playing the game, but we also wanted other folks to be able to play and enjoy the game. So that was why the community playtesting was necessary for us, was because you just can't like put it out there and take what playtesters that come in.
Mhm. Yeah, it also helped being able to take it into the community uh, so that we could ask specifically cultural related questions like, oh, how does the dance mini game feel with these specific dance forms? How does the powwow grounds look? Did we get everything right? Is everything looking correct? Um, how how is the use of language within the story not only being Menominee language, but also the way that we talk about things? Like one of the key components of the story is the families coming up to host a dance special honoring the loss of their grandfather and being very sensitive about the way that we're talking about that loss and the way that we're communicating that, making sure that we're using the right language around that. So it was very good to get that specific feedback that we could only get from the community and allowed them to talk about the game and get a sense of it and shoot us ideas on what adjustments could be made. It was very, very important to get that there.
Were there any surprises along the way for any of you in the project? Anything that came up or that made you pivot, make a change along the way?
I mean, I'll just start by saying we had a lot of scope cuts made because we started off with this very grand blue sky idea. And along the way, we realized, oh, this would take almost 8 to 10 years to make the dream game. So, working with Angelina and Justin, we pared down the story from this uh, epic weekend long saga about this family dynamic down to the core element, which was the mother and daughter's relationship. So that was kind of the big surprise for me. It's like, oh, we got to take this and reduce it down to its most core elements.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll speak for the narrative meetings that we had. I think the surprising thing for me was like being able to bring ideas to that because I have MFA in screenwriting. So the actual document itself, the script itself was written in a screenplay format. And then that was basically adapted by the team into gameplay, which was super interesting to be a part of that process. The other thing that kind of surprised me was how much of my like initial ideas of what the game should be actually made it into the final product. Because we, at the time, with a process like this, if other creators out there are looking to start this, I just remember one thing one of my mentors used to say, and I was just kind of yah-yahed about it, but she would say like, when you're trying to do something, it takes the time it takes. And that if you have deadlines, you have goals that you have to hit, and they're just not working out, like the frustrating part of fitting all that into a shape that just doesn't work for the time frame can cause, fatigue. It can cause interdepartmental conflict. It can do all kinds of things. But approaching it with this idea of like, if we want to get this product out the other end, it's going to take the time it takes. And that was always the approach that I came to the script with. And the idea of this contemporary representation of our community was, it wasn't a one-to-one because we're in a virtual world. But when I saw what they had done in digitizing the Woodland Bowl, I don't know if these guys can talk about it, but man, my eyes are like, I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. Like this is like it's beyond what I thought it would be, which is cool. I mean, it was really cool. But then also, like it's kind of cool to be what's considered like a junior elder now. I'm like in my late 40s, so it's it's not an official title, but it's like I'm in the farm system. I'm like double A elder going to the majors. But yeah, I was able to bring in like being a video game fanatic since the ColecoVision Atari days forward. I was able to bring in, and these guys just sat and listened to me talk about like, like one time out by Shawano Lake, there was a Spy Hunter sit down cabinet, and you don't find those anywhere. So I had all these like old unk stories about arcades and video games and stuff. And a lot of that got incorporated into the look and feel and tone of the game, which was awesome. That was really cool.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, that's a great topic. Go ahead, Nanakoi, if you had more to add.
Yeah, to add a little bit to that is the Woodland Bowl where the game is based is really historically valuable for our people. And seeing how the team immortalized that place within the virtual world was, like Justin said, it was amazing for Menominee people to see a place where we've grown up and been quite often in represented in such a beautiful way. Um, to also talk to Justin's experience writing the script to be, in the playwriting style. As someone who translates and does a lot of work with language, it was um, very refreshing to see the way that he had written the script had been to be spoken. I think now when we see a lot of writing, sometimes, especially with translating language, there's something that's missed where we're not, I guess we're using a certain level of language and writing that isn't necessarily written to be spoken. And so I really appreciated seeing, all of his talent that he brought to writing the script to actually be incorporating what it's like to speak as a Menominee person. And so it really was easy for me to incorporate the translation because it's a Menominee person who's writing in the way that we would actually speak. So that was something that was like pleasantly surprising for the script and the project to see.
Mhm. That's a great note. And yeah, and following up on the comments about the environment, yeah, could you all talk a little bit about how you made that happen, how you brought it to life?
Uh, well, yeah, and I would invite Angelina to join me on this. It started off by taking a group of creators. Amber, you were there, from both PBS Wisconsin and Nebraska Public Media, into the actual Woodland Bowl onto the Menominee Reservation. We brought our artists, we brought audio engineers, we brought a lot of folks from different disciplines into that space, so that they could see what it looks like, how it sounds, and make sure that it was recreated correctly. And that even expanded to actually attending the powwow for the last 2 years, which Angelina joined us for. So, Angelina, if you want to speak about that experience.
Yeah, so going to the powwow, we went there several times to collect video first year and then audio on both years. Um, and so that was very useful. That was very important and very useful. There was a lot of work going into the design of the environment in game. There's a lot of technical stuff with shaders and optimization and so on that I won't bore everyone here with. But that was a lot of work that the team did put in. There was also, of course, we mentioned licensing the art. So, for example, the beading designs that we licensed were also then implemented into the environment. If you go to one of your Uncle Gerald's beading stand, you will find the beading designs there. This little bit of just adding those little details in. You can find the drummers down at the bowl, not quite as many as they have, but once again, like optimization concerns, the drummers are down there, and the Will Bowl sign that is very iconic is there. So it's a lot of these small details that were put in.
Yeah. Yeah, and being that a lot of our 3D modelers and our 2D artists were not Menominee, being able to work with them, take them into the space, and have everybody get a sense of what this space looks like outside the powwow and during the powwow was very important so that they had the background knowledge for how to create that work. Angelina was our environment concept artist on the project. She also did a lot of other work with that, and we had 3D modelers base a lot of work off the reference footage that we had and the work that Angelina did to recreate this space as authentically as it's depicted.
What lessons, as you know, you're looking back at this project, what lessons would you want to share with others interested in doing these types of community collaborations, from other stations, from other places around the country? What kind of lessons learned would you all share with them? Advice?
I would just start by saying, these collaborations with your local communities are very valuable. These are the stories that we're telling in public media. We're telling the stories about, uh, the folks that live within our regions and making sure that we're lifting up their stories where in private media they wouldn't have the opportunity to be told. So yeah, begin creating these collaborations around the state. PBS Wisconsin has been working with the native tribes for well over 50 years at this point. So by creating those relationships and continuing those in good faith, you're allowed to make content like this that couldn't be done and speaks very well to those communities. So yeah, I would invite everybody to start reaching out.
We'll also add when reaching out, definitely I think doing it early is definitely better than doing it later. Similar to how you approach playtesting, a lot of the things that we were able to, there were just certainly cultural issues that came up in the course of making this game, but we were able to resolve these before we got to like public testing, for showing it to like the general public because we had been in communication with our advisors early on.
Yeah, I'll say that I'll resound what Jacob and Angelina said, and also add that I was gonna say that early and often thing too. Um, but like I know we live in a digital world and a virtual world. We're dealing with AI burgeoning into all forms of media. The more you can rely on like analog communication, the better, I think, especially if you're dealing with rural communities, rural tribal communities. The more personal the connection, face to face, a phone call. I know it's scary, and I don't often pick up numbers I don't recognize either, but like, like those sort of like entrees into the community, getting to know culture keepers, and that's not just indigenous specific. I mean, there's culture keepers in agrarian communities all over. There are these living libraries that are just sitting there waiting to be utilized. They have these stories, they have these relationships with people. And if you're looking to tell the story of your area, then the really important thing is that it changes you as a storyteller. It develops your practice, it develops your professionalism. And hey, you just might come out of it with friends that become family, you know. So, as personal as you can get with that work and as connected personally, the better it's going to be for the project. Yeah.
I love that.
I would just add on as well, to kind of echo that the wildly good success of this game has a lot to do with the way that the team has approached and people who are advisors for the authentic representation of the Menominee people. It's really important to see the collaboration that was happening throughout this project, and I think that a lot of people, could learn something from seeing the way that Jacob and Angela and their team approached how they collaborate with Native communities. But it's also a testament to say that Jacob and Nick also being Menominee and being in these places and these jobs to be able to create these projects is really important. It's really important that they put so much work into collaborating with the community in a really respectful way. So we all appreciate it.
Beautiful sentiment. Yes. We do have a few questions in the chat. Anyone, else who has questions, please put them in there. I'll just read them in order here. The first one is a tech-specific question. Any surprises on how people are playing this game in terms of devices or length of play? Anything you're seeing since the launch that's been surprising?
We're getting a lot of Chromebook playthroughs, mostly for being in classrooms, and that was something that we expected, and that inspired a lot of the design that went here. Being that it's run in a web browser, we stuck with that stylized design and wanted to make sure that it could run on low-end devices.
Uh,
Oh, go ahead, Angelina.
I was also going to just really quickly add, we also released a game on Steam, which also has its own sort of unique audience. Sure, Jacob would be able to say more on that.
Yeah, we just released on Steam, and we have been seeing more international folks playing the game. We've had British players, Polish players coming through. So it's been very interesting to see the different demographics that are coming based on each platform. Web seems to be sticking more towards the United States, and Steam seems to be going more international.
And it seems like people are playing, the length of play and the length of time people are spending on the site is definitely demonstrating that.
Yeah.
Great. Next question. What is next for this project? Will there be a sequel or companion video series? Anything else planned?
So I believe we are planning on doing a Menominee language translation of that. So that is in the early stages of discussing how that's going to be doing done. But yeah, the plan is to have this translated entirely into Menominee.
Yeah, so working with our Menominee U group and making sure that we're paying them for the work that they're doing, because this is not easy work translating a game into another language. So yeah, I'm very excited to see that pan out.
I've heard that they may have to invent new words or dig deep to find appropriate words.
Yeah, that if that happens, it's gonna be like the culmination of a dream that Ronco and I have talked about. I mean, mostly coming from my side. Like, he's super busy with the language stuff. But I was as soon as I got out of my master's program, I was like, oh my God, it would be amazing to use the format of screenwriting to tell a story in Menominee language. So I'm excited if that does happen, what sort of discoveries, facets of the language get utilized within that.
I'm also really excited at this prospect for different reasons. One of them being how Angela said, we might have to find new words or create new words to be able to describe these things. But that's a great sign of like a living language that's evolving. And so it makes us language learners and speakers very excited that this type of format can be used to teach people the language in the way of it being a video game. You're hearing the audio being spoken. So being translated into Menominee and then spoken within the game is another way for our language to continue evolving. So.
Very exciting, and excited to share with everyone here once that is out in the world. We have one more question in here. How important has mobile compatibility been with this project? You could talk about how you picked the format that you picked.
Yeah, so unfortunately, this game is not available on mobile devices. That is entirely due to the limitations of the software that we're using. We utilized the Unity game engine for this game, and about halfway through development, they put out a new version of the engine that made it much easier to play web games on mobile devices. So unfortunately, we were unable to update to that. But yeah, our main goal was to target classrooms, so making it available through the web browser and available on Chromebooks was what we were primarily targeting here.
Great. Any other thoughts about how you approached accessibility? That kind of speaks to that a little bit, but how else did you consider accessibility as you went through the design of this experience?
Yeah. Well, I mean, both our stations have specific rules that we have to follow when it comes to accessibility. I was grateful that we were able to work with someone from your user experience team at PBS Wisconsin to help drive a lot of the accessibility considerations that we were making. Yeah, that was part of our UI meeting that we had. Yeah, and thanks to their work, we were able to make sure that we weren't putting any unintentional barriers up for players for this game.
All right. Well, we are almost at time. I just want to end with one more question for you all. What impact do you hope this game will have, on players, on educators, on the Menominee community, and just on public media as we move forward, and the wider games industry too? I'll just open it up to all of that. What kind of impact do you hope this will have?
I hope it invites more people into making content that's more driven by the communities. I hope that folks from public media can learn from this and start reaching out to community members and making content, whether that's videos, games, or other elements like podcasts with the community that they serve. Something that we've been seeing as we've been taking this out to places is that we're getting a lot of young folks interested in this because we've worked with the community. So in a time when we're looking for that younger audience, this might be a way forward for that.
But I think there's also a lot of power in the cross-station collaboration as well. Obviously, this is one instance where the content happened to line up. But even without the content lining up, there's still, I think, a lot to be said about potentially being able to share resources, share knowledge between stations, because this would not have been possible without folks from both sides.
Yeah, I'll just speak a bit about legacy and the fact that Wisconsin PBS, Nebraska Public Television, they're some of the media arms of the like pop culture that actually reach out to Indigenous communities and attempt to tell their stories. Like my family is involved in back in the early 70s, like before PBS was a thing. It was like WGBH Boston. My dad was like a production assistant on a film that they filmed on the reservation. So the legacy, like I'm just proud to be a part of this project because it's a continuing thread through the legacy that my family has in dealing with artwork with our community. So I remember being young, trying to draw. My dad was a really good visual artist, trying to draw, and him looking at it and being like, maybe you should write. you know. So I took his advice, and yeah, so it's just another way. I feel like tribal communities add so much to the surrounding areas that they're in, all the way down to the names of stuff. Like everyday names are used, Chicago, Minneapolis, all this stuff is like indigenous at its core, you know, and people just toss off words like they don't know where they came from. So little projects like this help to educate people about where they're at, you know, the land they're standing on, the people that are around them. So yeah, that's that's my 2 cents.
I'm, really thankful to have had my part in this project, and one of my hopes is that Menominee people and Indigenous people can continue telling their stories and sharing their skills and talents in such a authentic and original and positive way that is having such a positive impact on our own communities and other communities who are seeing these games and playing them. So I really hope that it keeps branching out to other places, and that our people get these opportunities, more opportunities like this. So I went in.
Well, thank you all so much for joining today. Thank you for the inspiration and all the work and your time today sharing with everybody. Really appreciate it. And thanks everyone for joining. Hope you all have a great rest of your day.